It's in the month of December, very close to Christmas. I know it's a very hectic time, and I hope if you are celebrating any holiday during this period that you're trying to craft it into one where you can be more relaxed and less hectic and less pressured, and just get to enjoy the people with whom you'll be conversing and meeting with, as the season moves on. And if that's not happening, do something to try to make it happen, because as we've said here in the past, stress is such a big part of our life, and we've talked about ways of working on stress on ourselves, like in our bodies and our personal minds within our own individual perspectives, but what we also need to do is fix the outside, fix the environment, and fix the way that we are functioning in the environment in relation and counter-relation to each other to counteract stress. And one of the ways you would do that this season is to try to think of how to slow down, not have to shop so much, talk to your peers, talk to the people you're going to mingle with, decide on saner ways of getting together and not having to go shopping, not worry about the finances of having to spend so much money, and make it much more of a get-together, much more of a taking of food together, a little imbibing together, a little singing together, dancing together, and work on it, that it would become more of that and less just an empty consumerist, rush-a-day, financially stressed situation where the time you do meet up with people is very short and you don't have much time to ever enjoy it. And it all flies by so fast, doesn't it? It's on us now, and the nation is focused on how much retail sales will come in and as a number, and that's the big focus, and we're all out there helping them with that goal. It's a sorry goal in the time of Christmas that that's the best we have to offer, but it will all come and go very fast and fly by, and you won't even know that it was here, and it gets faster and faster all the time. Our goal is to try to slow down even within the speedy life we lead, relate with each other, have more time to just sit, talk, relate, take a breath, and not be rushing around, and not be all consumed consumers. Yes, and to teach our children these things too. Now, there are so many things to talk about, you can bring some up yourself. Nobody will bite your head off for it. One thing that I'm thinking that is in keeping with the order of the day, when I drive in my car, as I've said before, I often tune in to talk radio, some of which are hard to get around this area and other areas. Some of the stations don't come in very well that have some of the more noted talk people on radio. But anyway, one of the big topics that had gone on in the last couple of days is this issue of the President and the Vice President and the National Security Administration being together in an eavesdropping plan that included, that eavesdropped at least on some 500 people within the United States, people who are citizens of the United States, and all in the name of this so-called war on terror. And of course, it's not so much the eavesdropping per se, the spying, if you will, but the fact that to many on both sides of the aisle it was considered a slap in the face of the Constitution, an illegal act, to the extent that whenever a president or a security administration organization wants to spy on people, it must go to the court and just pass through the court what the reason is that the spying should be done, and then get a warrant to do so. And apparently, many of the experts that I've heard speak on this said that had court been gone to get warrants to spy on these people, it would have been given easily, freely. And so the question becomes, why would one not go to court? A, that it's unconstitutional and that it's breaking the law, and B, if the court would easily grant the powers to do so, why would the court be bypassed? Why go around the court? There's two things. There's one, going to the court before you decide to spy and getting the warrant, which would be very easily granted in these particular cases. And secondly, you have, with the last Patriot Act, you have a situation where apparently you can be spied on for up to 72 hours, and then you must go to the court and tell them what you're doing and get a warrant for it, or notify them. So just so that there are checks and balances, so that people are not able to be these big brother spy policemen spying on you with no controls. Nobody else knows about it. Secret organization. Again, this administration has been accused of secrecy. This is another reality that is in line with this reputation for secrecy, and people scratch their heads, even on the conservative side of issues, scratching their heads. Why would you not go to the court when the court would give you the powers that you want in a split second, and quickly, with no waiting, and so forth? So this is very interesting, and the president came out and spoke to this issue and took it head on offensively, saying he's going to continue to do just as he's been doing, because he has to, quote unquote, protect people. And that protecting people is what he's there for, and his business. Now, many people are appalled, including people in the Republican Party, are appalled that this kind of thing is going on, and that he would bypass the courts for an unknown reason. On the other hand, what's striking to me is many people believe that he should be allowed to do this. They see no harm because they believe. They believe like they believe in Jesus. They believe like they believe in religion. They believe like they might believe in evolution. They believe like they believe in Bill Gates as a hero. They believe like they believe in the commercials they see on TV. They believe. You know, and speaking of Richard Pryor, which I was not, the idea of all this believing just made me associate to Richard Pryor, who is a monolith. There isn't really a word to describe the impact and the essence and the being of what transcribed and transpired as Richard Pryor on this earth. And I certainly find great admiration and respect for the life of Richard Pryor and the things that he, shall we say, revealed by being alive and by being who he was. But speaking of believing, and people believing that George Bush should be able to do this without the courts because it's about the war on terror, and if he says so, you should believe it. One time in the movie Car Wash, Richard Pryor plays the role of a preacher who comes in a nice chauffeured sort of limousine car, so I can't remember, sort of like a Bentley or a Rolls, and it's all white, and he's dressed in white, and in the back are his babes, and they happen to be the Pointer Sisters. And he gets out at the car wash, all duded out as the Reverend, and he's asks for donations as the Reverend of the church, and it's a parody on reverends of the church being into women and sex and asking for money. And the Pointer Sisters end up doing a musical scene where they're saying, if you've got to believe in something, why not believe in me? And that's Richard Pryor's point to the people. He's like, if you've got to believe in something, why not believe in me? Taking that idea of belief and just standing it up on its edge, a two-sided coin on its edge. If you've got to believe in something, why not believe in me? Tells brothers, sisters, and he's got his babes, and he's got his car, and he's got his money, and he's the preacher. So, believe, like, and believe. And there he is. If you've got to believe in something, hey, believe in me. Give me the money. Belief is up for grabs. Belief is arbitrary. Belief is an option. So anyway, back to the people calling in and talking about this spying, and many saying, oh, it's perfectly all right for the president to do this. I have full faith in him. He's doing it for the good of the country. How many people believe that whatever the president does, and because he says it's for the good of the country, because he said in the past that God told him to do it, because he said in the past he knows it's the right thing, how many people are willing to accept no courts, no Senate, no House of Representatives, no outside groups, nobody watching what kind of dictatorial and big brother, as one person called it, tyrannical powers are being melded into more and more influence over the cultural landscape. And people believing, because the president said, you should believe it, I'm doing it for your own good, and so people believe it, because if he says it's for their own good, then it should be done, if he says so. So there's an awful lot of belief in that president, and this kind of belief, is a recipe for totalitarianism. In Germany, people believed unwaveringly, believed very much, and of course a big belief machine grew out of that, and we can cite a lot more examples of people believing. Scientology and other kinds of religion, people believing unquestioningly just because it said so. But even further than that, in a practical sense, it runs against what is the framework and dynamic and working function of the United States of America as a constitution, as a people in a country, because the country is built and founded and organized on the premise of checks and balances, that the judge and the judiciary and the legislature and the president know what each other is doing, to some, especially in dangerous areas, so that no one is allowed to run off and be doing things that no one knows about, and then has no recourse to when trouble happens and people are held in captivity for no good reason, or for good reason without due process. Due process is one of the hallmarks around the world and in history of the United States of America, and what makes us the kind of country we are. So it's very interesting and chilling to see how many people are willing. We're in a time where people are willing to obey and give up any logic of their own. They don't have to know what's going on. They don't have to know what's the story in Iraq. If he says it, they'll believe it. They don't have to understand those people. They don't have to understand the background of why we went there. If he says it, we'll believe it. They don't have to think on their own. They're told by the leader that this is what's good for them, and they believe it. This kind of belief. And I go back to Richard Pryor. If you've got to believe in something, why not believe in me, the shady reverend with his babes? Right here. I'd like to reiterate some of the themes that I always care about and always want to talk about, which are the stress in our lives. We work on stress on our own selves through time management, financial management, proper breathing, helping ourselves think in ways that reduce stress, mental exercises, organizing our lives in less stressful ways on purpose, crafting it so. But more importantly, working on stress on the outside environment, working on stressors that we have to deal with, that we're all subject to, that we're all trying to protect ourselves against, that we're all cowering in a corner coming home after a long day, our tongue hanging out, just slouching down on the couch, maybe passing out for a while. A lot of it to do with running and stress and work overload and the stress of work overload. So what we can do to make that this just doesn't keep increasing and that we keep on having a more stressful existence. I found myself speaking up many times about things to people in situations where you might ordinarily be quiet. Speaking up, like in a grocery store, asking that more people be put on the registers, or going politely up to the manager and saying there should be more people on the register here. We shouldn't have to wait this long. And another thing, phone menus, for example, causing us how much time is lost and aggravation in all of us when we try to reach some place. And we have to listen to a long menu that has nothing to do with what we want. And all of us, imagine, compounded, how much time and stress is happening over this. All having to listen to these long menus before we get to where we want, and probably just a voicemail anyway. We have to speak up when we finally do meet people that we don't want this. We just want someone to pick up the phone and direct us exactly to where we want to be. Think of the amounts, time management experts love to think in how much time can be saved, productivity, and so on. Think of how much time the nation wastes as a whole, as a conglomerate, every day listening to long menus on the phone, each and every individual person, and often punching the wrong button, needing to start over again, getting disconnected. Think of all the time we waste on that basis. And it also seems like sometimes you wonder if the goal is to get people to be less able to talk to each other, less able to get in touch with each other. And we know, of course, in many instances that is a conscious goal, that people don't want to be bothered. And also it's a very good goal in terms of corporate positioning, that the less they have to hear from you, the easier it is to just keep on going without being interrupted and without having to listen to the feedback. And that's very bad for us. And we should be counteracting one-way street. We should be addressing, we should say to the MBTA, these trains that we ride on are disgusting, frankly, for the most part. And we should say, we should keep talking that there has to be better public transportation, or the buses, there has to be better public transportation, that they shouldn't squeal and make a lot of noise, that they shouldn't be dirty, that they should have proper heat and air conditioning as warranted, and that they should run on time, and that there should be more of them, and that the underground, as it is for the most part, is disgusting, and that we want better. Now, we won't get better tomorrow, but we shouldn't say, well, this is what we have to accept. We should say we want better. There are so many ways we can have better. Excuse me. We can say we want better schools. We can say we want computers for all the children in the schools. We want it, and we've got to say it and go to the meetings and say it and say it and say it over again. Now, also think about this. When you sign up for a cell phone or an internet service or many other kinds of service, the new trick that has happened is that you have to sign up by contract. They don't have anything in between. The lack of flexibility with corporations. Corporations being, to a great degree, the immovable force, the inflexible force, the one-way kind of decider and promoter that has the agenda in its hands. And think about all these times you can't take something except for the contracted period, and the contracts are set up so that the deal is so great that you have to take it longer. They make it that way. Why is there not flexibility as there used to be? Why can you not try something and let it go? Why do you have to pay penalties if you let it go early? These things should all be addressed. Shouldn't be happening. It's all a one-way street. It's all stressful. We should say, we want public transportation. We want clean, beautiful transportation. We want automobiles, to the extent that they exist, to be mandated to have more gas mileage per automobile, so that we won't be breathing all the pollutants. We want national health care. We want physicians and nurses and other providers to have a decent load with a certain amount of reasonable money, so that everybody is getting seen in a reasonable way and getting the attention that he and she deserves. These are all the stresses, financial stresses, system stresses on us. There are so many, and we should be aware of them and speaking out wherever we can, If I hear someone say to me they want to be an oncologist, I'll say to them, Please look into why there is so much cancer, more cancer than ever before, and children being born with cancer. Please do that. Please look at all the things right here in the hospital, or right here in the studio, or right here in the home, or right here in the garden that are causing cancer, or in the cans, or on the grocery shelf, or in the air, or in the water. Please do that. So we have to speak up, and constantly be alerting people. If someone wants to give you a plastic bag in the grocery store and you don't need it, don't take it, and say there's too much plastic, and fish are suffocating on plastic. And plastic is suffocating the earth, frankly, and there are campaigns for plastic now by the manufacturers, so that because challenges are coming up against plastic, but we don't need plastic, and it uses petroleum. We don't need plastic, and it's not good for us. And we're suffocating ourselves, and we're suffocating the earth. If you don't have to take it, don't take it. And we should go back to less packaging on foods. We should go and bring our own bags and take however much we want of whatever without all the packaging. In most instances, there'd certainly be a lot of instances where this would be feasible, and just have a more livable society. I don't want to get too far on this, because I just wanted to bring out that we're always talking about stress. And there's so many things. You don't have to be just not thinking about it. Like, if I give somebody back a plastic bag in the store, they may take that plastic bag brand new and throw it in the trash can. I'm like, whoa, I reuse all the plastic bags. Reuse your plastic bags. Don't throw them away, and don't just take them liberally. If you have one small thing, don't even take a bag. Just take it and go. Okay, now, so we always talk about stress. Now, we always talk about the environment. We always talk about poor Mother Nature, and poor us, because our health goes down with the health of Mother Nature. So we're suffering, but it's not us we should care about. We should care about the trees and the mountains and the water and the animals who are not guilty of any of this devastation and demoralization that is occurring to our planet. We should care about it. It's more important than any war on terror, the environment. And also, we always talk about animals. And there are so many things about animals, and I'd like to bring to your attention NEAVS, New England Anti-Vivisection Society, right here in Boston. So that's neavs.com, or maybe .org, NEAVS, NEAVS, .org. You can call them, and you don't have to spend money. Just ask them for some of their pamphlets about what's going on. They fight very hard for animals, and they're right here in Boston. And they sent something this week about the 1,300 chimpanzees that are imprisoned in laboratories. And one laboratory technician who worked there is quoted, "In the lab, it was my job to hold them when something painful was being done. When something painful was being done. I tried to comfort them when they were scared or recovering from a procedure. I held them as they cried and tried to tell them it was okay. If the American taxpayers had to do that, chimpanzee research would end today." And here they're talking about chimpanzees, a few who have been saved out of research, and one, for example, loves the cool morning air, runs out and rolls down the path, stretches her arms and legs, wriggles on the cool surface, enjoying the smells and sensations of the sun and wind on her body. And you should see her photo, which I can't show you, so haggard, after having been a research animal for many, many years during HIV studies on her. 24 years. And she now resides in a sanctuary. And she spent 24 years in biomedical research. And these people come and take these animals who would otherwise be euthanized, used up, after they're so used up with all kinds of research after, for example, 24 years. And then Jeannie's eyes, this person says, told, the chimp's name is Jeannie, her eyes told the person that this chimpanzee had suffered too much for too long. It was her eyes that instantly brought me to tears the very first day I met her and filled me with overwhelming sadness, guilt, and pain. but also with the need to end this horrible thing we're doing to these wonderful beings. And there is a picture of a very haggard, elderly chimpanzee that has been through hell. So there are so many things I could say about animals. You could contact many societies. I usually have their names in the edited version, but right here in Boston you can make a call to the New England Anti-Vivisection Society and they'll send you this, and you don't have to give money. You can just drop a postcard, help them with their campaigns to help animals. Their telephone number is 617-523-6020, and you can find it yourself, New England Anti-Vivisection Society, right here in Boston. Okay, and as far as the environment goes too, I noticed a lot people refer to environmentalists as those lousy tree huggers. Well, we need tree huggers, ladies and gentlemen. We need the tree huggers. We need the people that believe in the earth and want to save it desperately. We need them. So the environment is always on our minds. Stress is always on our minds. War is always on our minds. War, what is it good for? Absolutely nothing. The idea that you would go in the name, trusting, believing someone, not knowing history, not knowing the people, not knowing the background, not knowing the intricacies, that you would blindly trust and go over, for example, me as Joe Schmo, and go over to another country and meet Jim Schmo and say, Jim, I'm going to blow your brains out. I'm going to blow your brains out of the blue. This is an outrage that I decide, or somebody decides for me, that it's necessary for me to go and bomb people to smithereens, break their legs off, shrapnel them, kill them, just do killing. In the name of what? In the name of what? And the idea of this as a recourse, as a quick recourse, as a hurry-up recourse, is an outrage that we would think of killing. A lot of us are still in the traditional mode. We really believe in war. John McCain believes in war. We really believe in war. We've got to stop believing in war. If we're true to what we talk about, if we're Christian, if we go to church, if we have high degrees of study in this country and around the world of how to work things out peaceably, if we believe that people should be brothers, that people should get along, we have to give up the traditional idea. We've got to work against that. That it's first thing we think of is kill. We've got to work against blowing up, killing as an idea, as a solution, as a thought, as a reaction. As if as though it's natural, as if as though it's the thing to do, as if as though the previous wars are models for the future wars. We've got to give this up. War sucks. War stinks. War is just no good, ladies and gentlemen. And there are many ways to skin a cat, to use a bad phrase. I wanted to talk today, too, about our healthcare system. Myself being in the midst of personally being involved with someone in a nursing home, and also knowing a lot about nursing homes myself, generally anyway, and pointing out to people how broken and desperate our medical situation is, in this case, as applies to nursing homes, but in general as well. Some of you may remember that in the past I did a show with Dr. Himmelstein, who is one of the leaders of the Physicians for National Health Care. I forgot exactly what the Physicians for Social Responsibility is it? I can't remember, but the group is working very hard to have a national health care system in this country and to bring medicine back to some kind of leveraged position where all the people involved who are doing the care can have time to really do the care and not just paperwork and dealing with HMOs and having a lot of the budget skimmed off by HMOs and having a lot of people not able to get any care at all, etc., etc. and the situation in nursing homes. And this is important for us to think about. We may think that it's liberal, oh, we want to give money this. We certainly need nursing homes, and we certainly need to be able to have places that care for people, and for example, in the event that they become too sick or too old to take care of themselves. It's almost irrational to expect that people would work their lives, be they affluent or not affluent, and build up enough resources to pay what the costs are today to be in a nursing home or to be getting some kind of extended good care when they're too infirm to walk to work or to walk to work, to do anything, or just too old to do anything. We're talking here hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it shouldn't be a glib position that, oh, people should just be able to pay for that. Where our system is in dire need, and the ratio of how many healthcare providers there are to a patient in a nursing home is very, very low. So the quality of life very often, even in the best circumstances, is below par because people cannot get the attention that they need with such a low ratio workforce for the patients that are there. So one of the things we should think about as a country is we should have a means that when you become infirm and that when you become too old, that you would be well taken care of. And this would go more in keeping with the national health care system, as I was speaking about before. One that doesn't have HMOs in the way, one that puts physicians in the driver's seat to make decisions as to what will happen to a patient rather than the HMOs, one that doesn't cut off care arbitrarily, one that doesn't have an ultimate and very close economic incentive in the decisions that they're making about people's care. And you know, some nursing homes don't even have juice and choices for liquids, or they may bring liquids only one kind around, like ginger ale, one time a day with one cookie, and otherwise you can't just get a drink if you wanted a soda or something. There might be a vending machine to buy it for the patients, and patients live on typically on $60 a month allowance, which gets used up just like that. They don't have comfortable chairs to sit in when they're watching TV. They have those hard chairs, and they may have swollen legs, and their legs are just hanging down. They have no comfort. They're in tight, squeezed rooms, in little corners. And if they're just elderly and they're with it, or even not with it, it's a real trial being in a nursing home. Real trial. And we've got to do better. We've got to be aware of this. And it shouldn't be that the individual provide for it. These are the kind of things we want to provide as a society. We want to provide it because common sense dictates. Just like you need good air, just like you need public transportation, good public transportation, just like you need water to drink, or you name it, trees for shade and trees for cleaning the air and making the air breathable. Just like you need all those things, you need care for people who are too old to care for themselves or too infirm to care for themselves. And there's no amount of work you can do. How stupid that would be that somebody would just work to try to make enough money for the time when they're infirm. For the time when they're infirm. People should be working to live and do the best they can, but we should have in place that there are proper nursing homes, proper nursing care. And this is not where we as a society need to be more. We don't need to be bombing and going to war. We need to be more on things like this, more on things like Social Security. Many people, most of us, work very hard all our life. To our best knowledge, we work the best we can. We're not lazy. We work the best we can. And we don't get anywhere near having the kind of funds that would put us through being able to stay in a facility were it not communally paid for, or being able to live into the future as prices get more and more expensive. Not everybody is out there making multi-million dollars, and not everybody's values are there. They might be working hard and trying to get ahead. They're not slouches, but not everybody is out there becoming a billionaire, and that is no curse to them. A good society cares for its people. That's why we don't really have a society anymore, a social culture. A good society cares for the people in the society. It cares for the infirm and the elderly, and it cares for the mentally ill. The mentally ill. Someone told me a story recently of a mentally ill person who was discharged from one of the institutions we used to have here in Massachusetts to a halfway house, and had liberties to be on her own and didn't have the wherewithal, was very, very unwell, didn't take her medicines, really belonged in an institution where she was protected, she was housed, she was clothed, she was fed, just couldn't do much better than that, medicated or otherwise. That was her lot in life. And this person saw this mentally ill person walking the street in the frigid winter, and then 3 weeks later, she heard that this person froze to death in a dumpster. She went into a dumpster to take cover to keep warm, and she froze to death there. So our mentally ill as trash, this happened not long ago, our mentally ill as trash, we have our mentally ill as trash. Many people have said, what good is a society that can't take care of its mentally ill? That's the hallmark of a true society. It's mentally ill. It's persons that are mentally disabled, mentally retarded, the infirm, and the elderly. So, liberal and other aside, these are things a community and a country and a people altogether need in place. Need in place. And now, too, we have that
new prescription drug benefit program.
Confounding, complicated, very difficult to understand new bill and program that is coming into effect in January, I guess. And elderly people have to sign up for that. Number one, a lot of the money that was given to this bill went to these HMOs, which is a very strange thing that HMOs, of all people, would be getting billions of dollars in a prescription drug plan, when people could be using billions of dollars for their nursing home facilities, for help with their medication payments, and so on. But somehow, billions of dollars went to HMOs as part of this prescription drug plan. And it's very confusing. We should be on top of this, talk about stress. We should be saying, we don't want such a confusing plan. There was some drive from AARP this way. There was some feedback from people trying to say we won't stand for this. But we should be giving more feedback instead of plainly accepting such a confusing, silly thing that is hard enough to understand if you have all your wits about you, never mind if you're an elderly person and have to try to understand it. And it's still going to cost you money out of your pocket for very expensive drugs, very expensive drugs. So when these things come to pass, we ought to have in our framework of what kind of monies we want to spend and what, not so much who we want to help, just what do we want to do as people? Do we want to be bombing? Do we want to be spying? Do we want to be going to the moon? Do we want to be cutting down trees and sending the lumber out? Do we want to be drilling in Alaska? Or do we want to be sure we have places for our children to be cared for properly, computers for every child in the school? What's so bad about that? Health care for everybody, and nice places for people to be nursed when they're infirm or old. And Social Security, so that when people are too old to work, and you'll be surprised how it creeps up on you when you're young, you don't know any better. And my message to anybody who is young out there is to beware, because when you are young, you just don't know any better, and you go ahead, all guns blasting, and you use up a lot of energy, and you may even burn yourself out, or you get older faster. Always practice moderation, and moderation is another step against stress. Practicing moderation in whatever you do. Don't go headlong, full speed, any which way. Try to be moderate. Moderate in eating, moderate in drinking, moderate in how fast your life is going, moderate in how late you stay up at night doing your work. Try to reach a balance. Try to be moderated. Everything in its place. I will make one final reference here as we're coming down to the close of the show. A couple more things here. Number one, Katrina. Still a very big disaster. We spoke on that on one of the shows. I'm sure you're following it. Very big disaster, as big as ever. People split apart, not getting any help. Homes not livable. Living hand to mouth. Insurances not paying for the damages. Lots of cleanup. Things kind of stagnating and still where they are. And we haven't the time to talk about that, but basically pretty much virtually little or no progress since Katrina, which has been called quite a disaster in this country. Secondly, last time we spoke with someone who called in and asked about he himself was African American and had a girlfriend who was Caucasian, and he asked, and they had a child together, and he said his parents were very against him being with a white person, and that he hadn't told them. He'd been together with the girl for 5 years, and he hadn't told them, and he was wondering, how do you break something like that to parents who would be very against it and very resentful of something like that. And so my quick advice to him, which is all I can give in a context like this, is to be very soft and roundabout. Approach it. Don't go head on. Don't alienate. Start to question. Say, you yourself don't feel that way, and how come they feel that way? And try to bring it up and try to get it going and try to, nurture it and get a thing going about it. But also, he pointed out, as I asked him about it, that they were Christians. And I was thinking that another way he could approach this is through the teachings of Christianity, maybe with his parents. A hard row to hoe. I understand that. Easy to say, hard to do. But to challenge it on the basis of Christianity and forgiveness. And believe me, when it comes to forgiveness, there's a lot of forgiveness that I could be doing in my own life. So I don't say that as any kind of a preacher. I could learn a lot more about forgiveness myself, and it's something, good to work on, to try to forgive. Because that's when we reach the stage of nirvana. We start to go into the higher level consciousness if we can forgive. And boy, do I have to work on that myself very much. So, we're going to be saying bye to you now as our time is winding down. And I want to again say that we'll be back the first Monday after New Year's in January, again live from 2 to 3. I hope you'll tune in. And you can also see my website, nancymroczek.com. You can www.nancymroczek.com, so you can visit there and see what you think. And in fact, send me an email and tell me what you think. And just an email. There's a place to ask questions. You don't have to do that. You can send me an email and tell me what you think. And also you might contact New England Anti-Vivisection Society for all the work they do. Like I say, you don't have to spend money. Just help out, help the animals. Speak up when things are anti-human, when we're living in conditions that aren't in our best interest, that are causing us more wear and tear. Speak up in the stores, around in the work, wherever you go. Speak up as a customer, as a citizen. Speak up politely, nicely. Use persuasion. Use gentle persuasion. And so I'm going to say farewell to you today, and hope you have a nice holiday, whatever holiday it is, and a relaxed one and a relating one, please, not a material one. Thank you, everybody, and see you later.